there you go. We're all together. So, yes, with it's interesting in these times of lockdown or semi-lockdown. Of course, I think none of us in lockdown, because you ask the women and, well, the blokes as well, but the people in prison, they're in lockdown. And they're a bit in lockdown as well. So it's in these times, like, you know, the prison project's been going now 26 years, Liberation Prison Project, but in Australia, we started in Australia, actually, I think it started with a previous nun here, 2003. Anyway, so what's been interesting is that because we weren't getting much information from prisons via the news, particularly early on, and also we were being given a lot of practices to do, we actually sent out all the practices that the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, that we'd been advised to the prisoners, and asked them to write back and share their experience of lockdown so we could get some news. Of course, since then, we have had a little bit of news. But what happened was fairly early on in March, maybe mid-March or something, we had, first of all, they said no more visits to prisons. And then they undid that. So people are able to visit one-on-one. I'm talking about, we have like prison chaplains. However, the prison chaplains for Liberation Prison Project are all in a rather vulnerable age group, or so the women visiting, the three that I'm thinking of visiting in Australia, and so they, well, one of them I said, please don't go to prison. And the other two are not going. But because we're our main focus anyway is writing, we've been able to maintain that contact. And because, at least in New South Wales, which is where we're getting most feedback from in Australia, was that because, you know, we heard in the news early on how this is a vulnerable group of people in prison, they've actually implemented very strong measures in the prisons, and there hasn't been one case yet. Queensland, early on, we had one officer, prison officer, who was infected with the virus. But it's been in Australia quite well contained in the prison sector, which is no small feat if anyone's ever visited a prison. Because social distancing, well, forget that, you know, is near on impossible when you're sharing a little, you know, small room together. Anyway, of course it's meant that people in prison haven't been able to get together in groups. So their Dharma groups and so forth haven't been able to meet. And there's a lot less exercise going on. So there are challenging times. But my thoughts was that these people know how to do isolation. They know how to do lockdown, and it makes your heart appreciate just how difficult the circumstances can be. They can be quite difficult, but to make making the most of it, you know, we constantly get the thing of when people have so many rights stripped away from them, and not just rights, sometimes it's even like your identity. You know, you're called by a number and so forth, and it becomes a depersonalized environment a little bit. And then, of course, you know, you're taken away from your family, your job, all those things that create the status for how you identify yourself. And so people in prison have had to adjust to that from the day they go into prison without any preparation whatsoever, really, mostly without any preparation whatsoever. So, and just, you know, where they have been able to be of great benefit, where we've been able to great benefit, is to say, okay, this is retreat time, this is practice time, this is study time, this is this opportunity to really you know, from their side, they want to turn their lives around. They say, hey, look, this is my wake-up call, want to turn my life around. And the women have a very, you know, more than the men, have a very good social support network. But I was thinking about some of the women I was visiting, or actually another chaplain was visiting regularly, but visited in some of the prisons in Sydney, who all different countries, all different language groups. And yet where there were two of them who spoke Chinese or Hungarian or whatever, they were able to support each other. And it was so wonderful to see in the Dharma group that, you know, the supports, of course, you know, we reach out for those supports where we can, even despite the obstacles in that sort of environment. So it's I find it very inspiring, the determination to practice, to study, and we, just before the lockdown, we got a lovely letter from these women, you know, just saying, we're missing you, and, you know, we're all doing fine, and so forth. And quite a few of those have now been released, those women. There was that, well, there was the implementation of, let's release those who are almost at the end of their sentence or have non-violent charges against them, you know, who are not at risk to society. And that didn't really get implemented straight away, but nonetheless, quite a few of those have now been released. So that's really good to see. But then, of course, there's a support post-release as well, which in normal times can be quite traumatic, let alone once you put isolation of COVID into the mix and having community supports and so forth. So, you know, mostly these women have no money, may or may not be estranged from their family or going back into a violent relationship, which we've been hearing about, the escalation in domestic violence. So I think these are issues we need to be constantly vigilant about and seeing. I know for myself, I sort of feel quite powerless in that domain. But I think, you know, we have to support all of those organisations that are campaigning for more support for victims of domestic violence and so forth. I was looking for the, you know, appropriate PC term, but I couldn't remember what it was. Anyway, but we know what we're talking about there, and this is something that is common in society. And so it's been wonderful to be able to support from the outside. The main thing is to let them know we're here to support you. We're here to connect with you and want to receive those connections from you, because we'd like their stories to then inspire others. And they do inspire others. They certainly inspire everyone involved in the project. You sort of think, well, here am I, well, at Chenrezig Institute in this beautiful retreat environment. And even in lockdown, we have 165 acres. I mean, we've got our own exercise program just by going for a walk up and down the steps here. If anyone's been here, you know what I'm talking about. So, you know, it's all sort of relative. But I did want to talk a little bit about that as well, that here at Chenrezig Institute, some of our nuns so have taken the opportunity to go into more strict retreat while we've got the doors closed and to the public. We've still been able to, as a community, because we are one household, we're a household of 40 residents here, but defined by Queensland government as a household. So we've been able to continue to get together with appropriate compassionate distancing. And we've been doing that for 2.5 months now to do our practices, so daily practice, which we do morning and evening, and then also to have teachings and so forth online. and we've had a lot more people participating in that. But I'm building up to the big joyous occasion we had last Saturday. And I just think this is inspiring what you can do in lockdown. We had an ordination, 4 new nuns. That's like, we had 9 resident nuns here and a couple are off-site, 3, I think, off-site. So now we've got 4 more. We're like another quarter of our population just like that in lockdown. How amazing is that? Well, we were having a big, I don't know if we can say party, but celebration last weekend of that, even in these difficult times. And actually I was talking to our baby nuns, 1 week old baby nuns, a little bit earlier, a couple of them saying, well, actually it's quite nice that we're not open to public because we're gradually adjusting to being a nun, even though a few of them had been living here pre-ordination, which is, facilitated them able to take ordination. But what was wonderful for us here was that Saturday coincided with the day that in Queensland we were able to travel 150 kilometres radius from your home, which meant our dear sister nun friends, 4 of them came up from Brisbane to join in, to be part of this community, celebration of such significance for us, of having, these 4 new nuns. So it was just so joyous because it's like there was no impediment, because we're allowed to have 10 people on the property and kept a note of how many were coming in and so forth. So I think, taking the opportunity, just like the women do in prison, to be able to take the opportunity to embrace the Dharma in difficult times. I mean, what alternative do we have? And feeling that those of us who are engaging in the Dharma have that gift that a lot of other people don't have, to be able to negotiate our way through difficult times, challenging times. So this has been a real great opportunity for reflection, internal reflection, and to really focus on our practice. And not that it's been, not that it's been dreamlike. Well, maybe it has been dreamlike, but maybe it's been, anyway. It's been quieter, and we've seen ourselves become more of a monastic community. And I have to say, what has contributed to that is also, the number of students, thank you so very much, who just offer food to us. And in our tradition, a bit different in other traditions, this is new in the West, right? This is not a culture of giving in that way, like directly. We've had people supporting our Sangha with when we had a functioning cafe, which has been closed now for, was it 10 weeks? So we haven't had that. And our students have just jumped in and, we meet them down at the Lion Gate, way out on the road, do an exchange in the cars. Actually, now it's all coming online. Now we can get online as well. But, it's just been wonderful for us to be able to reflect, this is what it is to live in a monastic environment, as the Buddha intended. So without the support of thank you, because I know at least one of you is here listening, to be able to, provide that support for our necessities, of life, so we can continue to practice and to teach and to share the Dharma. And I know everyone's missing coming here. At least I hear that. And we hope to soon be able to invite people physically in. As I said, we can invite 10 people, but I was saying this morning, well, that's a bit tricky. We say, you 10, and then, sorry, doors closed. It sort of feels a bit weird to do that. So anyway, we're all in a new normal, or actually we were saying this morning that maybe it's not going to be a new normal. because we don't think we've had this new normal long enough for it to become normal. Because when you, as soon as they say you can go to the shopping centre or the beach, look what's happened, right? All our, you know, sort of social distancing goes out the window. So for us here, it's been a huge, precious opportunity. Of course, we know that we will be opening our doors at some point in time when our Premier deems that, and at some future point we'll be opening our borders. We think, we're not sure. You know, it keeps being extended beyond. But keeping the networks alive and keeping our support, just like we're keeping our support going for those in the prison setting, keeping our support as a Sangha member for our Sangha sisters and those, you know, outlying ones of our community. They're the Brisbane ones, they're outliers. It's part of our community, you know, and to be able to support each other is so important, as maybe Lamo might be thinking, yes, there are my, on my own, maybe. Are you? Anyway, so having been at Vajrayana Institute for, I think, 12 years, as, you know, mostly solo nun, others coming and going, I know what it is to not have that support. So it's wonderful to be, actually I've been here now, like yesterday, 2 years. 2 years it's been, wow. And to have that capacity to participate in a monastic community, which certainly in our tradition, there aren't so many of those opportunities, of those nunneries. So in Australia, for sure, you know, we've got a fledgling one in Bendigo, very fledgling. And until our borders open up, we won't be welcoming from overseas. The fortunate thing is that one of the nuns here was going to be leaving us and going to Dharamsala, and she's a foreign national and her visa ran out in April. And so she's stuck here. So we are so delighted. And she's adjusted as well. No, she's very happy to be here. And, you know, on a whatever bridging or, you know, there's those special case for foreign nationals. So she's able to stay and participate in this community and build up as a nun in her first, it's over a year now. Oh, no, maybe still in her first year, actually. Maybe still in her first year. Yes, I think, yeah, a couple more weeks. So I think I'll stop there. I think I've talked for way long enough. And thank you very much. And
Venerable, can I just ask a question? Can you hear me? Sure. You know, looking at those women in prison, for yes. How many is it actually it could become a beneficial experience rather than just a coping experience?
I would say, well, for all of those that connect with us, it's a beneficial experience because they see that as an opportunity, not, you know, to really, you see the transformation happen. You know, we hear in the teachings about, you know, working on your mind and transforming and so forth. You see it happen because a prison is a very intense environment. So when people grab hold of something, they grab hold intensely. And also, all the things that distract you away, they can't go to the beach, they can't go to the shopping centre, they can't do a whole bunch of stuff. So you're really focused. And so having the support, it's remarkable to see. Even people have literacy issues and so forth, their literacy improves because they have to write a letter. And so sometimes they get their friends to write the letter, and sometimes they have to get their friend to translate the letter. But even on that level, you know, you see that benefit. And then by particularly, regardless, you know, unfortunately, in many ways, we can only offer our services to people whose name is written down as Buddhist. You know, this is a criteria of the prisons. In some countries, we've been able to get in through the education and offer other programs that you can reach a bigger audience, but just the meditation, you know, to deal with the stress of living in a prison is palpable. The transformation. In fact, the prison officers, you know, say, oh, you know, we love it when you come in here. Everyone gets peaceful, quiet. They watch their breath. Makes my job easy. And the environment changes and they want to help other people. So we're getting that anecdotally from education officers, from psychologists, from the prison custodial staff, admin, everybody, you know, that it's very welcoming. Chaplains and so forth. They're so supportive of any engagement in transformation or attempt at that. And they grab hold because it's beneficial. It's beneficial for just getting through the day, you know, day to day. And you see the results afterwards. That like one of, I think Tenzin Palmer, she went into Long Bay prison, well, quite some years ago now, with Venerable Aileen, I think, you know. And, you know, we also had Kandrala, who's she doesn't like to be called oracle, but His Holiness the Dalai Lama has recognized her as one of his oracles. And she lives in the compound with his, you know, the property. His Holiness has given her a house. And when she went into a couple of prisons here, it was remarkable. I mean, everyone in the prison, you know, all the top staff were there, and it was just such powerful energy. And, you know, one of the inmates took refuge with her, said, you know, saw her picture in the Mandala magazine, said, that's who I want to take refuge with. I mean, we didn't even know she was coming to Australia at that point. And then took refuge, and such powerful transformation that happens, in connections that happen, and actually even connecting with the Dharma, not in their wildest dreams before they got into prison would they have thought that, even though it might say Buddhist, you know, oh yes, my family was Buddhist, but I don't actually know anything about Buddhism, you know, or newly coming to it because they bring each other along. And so this is what, from day one of my involvement, which was way back in 2006, seeing that determination, that practice, that transformation happening continues to inspire me as a practitioner, as a very poor practitioner, very lazy one. So to be inspired by what they're doing in such difficult circumstances is not just transformative for them, it's transformative for everyone who engages with them.
Thank you, Venerable Chokyi. It sounds amazing. I don't think there's any other questions. I'll just look in the gallery. Does anyone else want to ask a question? Okay. Venerable Chokyi, thank you. We really appreciate your time. And at Sakyadhita Australia, we are hoping to have that conference when we can come up. We'd love to come up. There's a full program organised, and we're thinking maybe, Sharon will confirm, March, April this next year may be a possibility. So okay. Let's create the causes for it to, you know. So all the members listening, that is a possibility for next year. So Sharon, can you have a chat to Anastasia Palashek and just that? Get her to open up. Get her to open up. Only in March, yeah, okay. No, we need before then to make the flights, right? Yes. Venerable Chokyi, thank you so much. That was illuminating. Okay, thank you. Now, do you want me to stay online for a little while? I've got to go in about... We'd love you to stay as long as you can. Okay. Okay, I'll just mute. We understand you have other commitments. So...